there everyone, and welcome to another RZSS Christmas Crafts. Today we're going to be thinking about using locally foraged materials. So we're going to be making some fairy wands, and we're going to be making some Christmas stars to go on the tree. So the first thing that you'll need if you want to do this craft is some sort of bendy stick. So willow's usually best, but you can choose other types of wood if you'd like to. It's usually best if they're fresh for this particular craft. Normally when you're working with willow it's best to season it for about a year, but in this case I think we can get away with just having nice fresh bits. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure that this is completely clear all the way along to the end of the stick. So I'm going to take off all of the side branches with secateurs. Now I'm doing this very quickly because I spend a lot of time working with tools, but you'll notice that when I'm using them I've got my arms stretched out far away from me. I'm not cutting towards myself. I'm being really, really careful as I do it. Children, obviously, best if you do this with an adult. Although here at the Zoom we've got our trained staff and we're working doing forest school type activities, we do often have youngsters as young as about 3 using secateurs as long as we're doing it properly. So once you finish using your secateurs, make sure that you lock them to shut them and you can put them to one side. Okay, so now you've got your branch ready. So at the moment, when I've been practicing, what I've realised is that this end here is too thick to make a really good wand. It's hard to bend and it sort of starts to snap. So it's best to use the sort of whippy end of your stick, the thinner end, towards the end of the branch. Now, when I'm making a fairy wand, I want it to suit me and be exactly right for me. So what I'll first of all do is I'll decide how thick I want the fairy wand to be, and I reckon I want it to be about as thick as this sort of middle area. And then I'll get my elbow and I'll measure all the way up to my wrist. And once I've measured up to my wrist, I do my first bend. And that's going to be the length from the tip of your finger there all the way down here. That's going to be the length of your fairy wand stick. And now we want to make the star. And that's really the important bit and the most Christmassy bit, I think, of this craft. So we've done our first bend. So it's bent over to 90 degrees. The next thing you do is you choose how big you want your star to be. If you want it to be a tiny little star, then you could have a tiny little bit and make your next bend really, really close to the first one. But that's quite hard. It can be quite fiddly. So sometimes it's easier to make a bit of a bigger star. So if it was me, I would choose the length of my thumb joint. So I'd measure from my wrist all the way along to the tip of my thumb and then bend. So now you've got 2 bends. Now that's going to be the size of your star. So you don't want any of your other bends to be any different distance from these ones here. You want them all to be equal. So your next bend you're doing, you want to measure it roughly to where your first bend is here, and then do another little bend over. And when you're doing it, be quite gentle. You might need to sort of wiggle your stick around a little bit to make sure that it's supple, because if it's not, then it's going to snap. So just give it a little bit of a wiggle and make sure you're doing it carefully. So now you've got 1, 2, 3 bends. Once you've got those, then you can make yourself an equilateral triangle with 3 equal sides. So we've got our equilateral triangle starting there. Once you've got that, cross the top over your wand and make another bend. So it's going to be exactly the same length that we've measured twice before, and bend over. And then do one more, bend over here. So you've got a sort of triangle that's been done round almost twice, except the bottom section. Then you can let it go. So you've got all your bends in place and your wand is ready to be made, and now it's time to make the actual shape. So we'll go to our first bend and pull the wand over to the side here. So you end up with quite a small triangle here. It's not equilateral anymore. And you pull it up to be the first side point of your star. And wrap around the front. You can wrap around the back. It might take a little bit of time to get this exactly how you want it. I've done it quite a few times now in my practices, so hopefully I'm quite good at it now. Sometimes it takes a little while just to get your star into the right shape, but then you can just stretch it so it's star shape, and once you've got it in the right form for you, then you wrap the end around the rest of your wand. Now, the fiddly bit here, and the bit you might need a friend to help you, someone in your family, is tying it off. So if you get a little bit of string, what you can do is tie it just around anywhere where the 2 sticks are wrapped together and make sure that they can't sort of spring apart. got to have really careful fingers. That bit can be cut out.
Yep.
Sped up. Okay, so now you've tied your wand, you're ready to cut the string off. Just cut it nice and short if you can. And then your wand is pretty much ready there. I've got a really big long extra bit here. I don't think I want a wand that big, it's too big. So I'm going to get my secateurs again. Again, I'm going to be really careful. I'm going to unlock them. I'm going to think about where the end of my arm joint was. It was over here somewhere, and I'm going to cut it off. There. And that is your fairy wand. Now you can leave it completely natural like that, and I quite like them when they just look like they've come straight out of a woodland. But you can also decide to paint them. If you do, the best thing I've discovered so far is if you paint them with a mix of poster paint, sort of pre-mixed poster paint and PVA glue, so 50% poster paint, 50% PVA glue, mix it up and then you can paint it on and it sticks. And if you want to make it extra fancy, then you can get a little bit of biodegradable glitter. Now that is important. If we choose non-biodegradable glitter, it's not too good for the environment, so have a good think about that when you choose your resources. And then you can sprinkle it over the top of the paint before it dries. Hopefully it should have a sparkle. If you wanted to make one of these little stars, you can do pretty much the same process, just you don't have to worry quite so much about the sort of stick part of your wand. You tie it a little bit closer and then you snip it off, and then you can just hang it up on the tree. Thanks very much everyone, I hope you enjoy your Christmas. Merry Christmas from all of us at the RZSS.